Good morning again, everyone. My name is Sasha Chilkova. I'm a marketing manager here at Witham. Today we'll be talking to you about Microsoft 365 and how it is and can be your gateway to data loss prevention. I'm just going to cover a couple of housekeeping items. We are recording the webinar. We're going to try to keep it to a 15-minute session. We have a lot of content to cover and some demo to go over. We'll leave 10 minutes for questions at the end. Please don't hold back during the sessions. You can submit your questions in the Go to Webinar panel in the questions pane right there. So any questions, don't hold back, we'll address them. If we don't get to them, we'll maybe do a blog post at the end or something like that. And we will send out a copy of the recording and the slide deck later this afternoon. With me today, I have Daniel, Chris, and Max. So Daniel, if you want to go ahead and start and introduce yourself.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Daniel Cohen-Dumani. I'm a partner here at Witham Digital. We're excited to be hosting this webinar today and talk about some hot topics around security, around compliance, and more importantly, how do you secure your cloud assets? So I'm also joined with Chris. Chris, say hello.
Hi, good morning. So I'm Chris Hertz. I lead our managed services team here at Witham. I'm talking to you today out of our Bethesda office. Happy to be here. Max.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm Max Hervé. I work with Daniel and Chris to move customers from on-premises networks to Microsoft Cloud. So happy to be here, and we'll be looking at things together.
Very good. So let's get started with some background here and talk about what to expect from today's webinar. I think our intent is to help you gain a better understanding about what are the security threat landscape, and to discuss specifically how some of the Microsoft capability around Microsoft 365 can help you protect your digital estate by, one, protecting and governing where your data live, to identifying and remediating critical insider risk, and investigating and responding with relevant information. So with that, let's get started. So first, we have a poll for the audience here. We'd love to hear from you all about what are you using today? Are you on Office 365 alone? Are you using already some advanced security features such as EMS? Are you on the whole Microsoft 365? Or are you on Office 365 and using other security and compliance tools? Or you're done now, which is okay. So we're seeing some results coming here. I think most of the people here, some are on Microsoft 365. Many people, as we would expect, have Office 365 and other security and compliance tools. And one of our goal today is also to enlighten you all about some of what Microsoft can offer. As a matter of fact, we believe that Microsoft can replace a lot of other security vendors at a much lower cost point, and of course in an integrated fashion. So thanks for answering the poll here. Let's now continue. So what are the security challenges in 2020? First, we've seen an increase of data regulation around the world. GDPR started a couple of years ago. We're seeing now the California privacy law taking effect earlier this year, and we are likely to see more regulation around data. And it's not just about how to protect data, it's also what to do to protect yourself and your organization to avoid breaches or incidents. We're also seeing the compliance around security becoming standardized. SOC 3, which is and that's a certification done by the IACPA, NIST 800-171, which is a government-specific cybersecurity framework, and the upcoming CMMC, which is a certification that will be required for some government contracts. So more compliance around the world, around the world, and many businesses are reaching out to us and say, "How do I get compliant?" Of course, security breaches have been mounting. We all hear the big news, but what we don't hear is many small businesses are being attacked every day as well. And as a result, they need to protect their intellectual property and limit data leaks. Security compliance market, as we all know, is very fragmented. We'll see that many of you on this call have, Office 365 and probably a lot of other solutions. And sometimes you don't need all those solutions, right? You need one integrated solution that can give you all you need into one place. What also is true is the cybersecurity landscape is rapidly changing. It is becoming the new battlefield, right? Both from a government-to-government standpoint, but also a place where things are happening very quickly in the cloud. Most organizations are suffering with a lack of personnel and resources, right? It takes a lot of people to protect your organization, to make sure that you're securing everything you need to secure. And virtually anything can be corrupted, right? Not just your devices, your traditional computer, but we're talking about phones, maybe devices or sensor IoT devices as well. When it comes to defending, when it comes to defending, against cyber attack, we really have to consider everything, right? And Microsoft calls that the digital estate. What is all the things you have around your organization that you need to secure? And that, of course, includes the cloud, right? Not just your on-premise capability. The cloud is a great place to simplify and make security easy. And we're going to explain that today. Specifically, what you need to all know about the cloud is that specifically Microsoft is investing a lot of research and development about how to automate some of those security capability using artificial intelligence and machine learning to be able to detect and notify you in advance of an event that may happen in the future. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Chris. And Chris, why don't you take us on and talk more about what are the Microsoft specific answers and challenges around security and compliance?
Yes, thank you, Daniel. And you and I have been talking about how does Microsoft communicate this in an integrated fashion and showing all the capabilities and investments. And as the poll shows, a lot of our customers are on Office 365, but they have not taken advantage of what's really happening in the past, I think, 3 to 5 years and the advancements of these security capabilities in the platform. We're going to talk about this as a major component of our discussion today. And if you can slice it up into 4 different sections, it first starts with identity and access management. I'll turn over to Max shortly to go into that in a little more detail. And I'll come back and talk about information protection. Lastly is overall managing the security with insight. That's typically the secure score. And I think a lot of our customers have seen their secure score. What does that mean and how can you make that actionable? When we first started talking about this topic, there's so many products that are out there. And like I mentioned, there's so much investment that Microsoft has made. They put together a reference architecture, and this is the one that's updated last year. I put the link in here, so if you have a browser open, take a look at ak.microsoft.ms/the MCRA. So this is a really complex 20-some build slide. So here we go. So all of our customers have Windows infrastructure or Linux infrastructure. They may have extended that infrastructure to an extranet, allowing customers and partners to access their information. That's their data center. They have client machines, some are managed, some are not managed, PCs as well as mobile devices accessing this information. And you might have a maturity center where you have an operation to approach security, and you've taken a look at some of the more of endpoint, or if you've worked with a service provider like with them, we offer our managed services platform for securing customer environments. When we first start talking about protecting information, I think everyone's first experience in there is data loss prevention. And data loss prevention has been part of the Office 365 platform, the Microsoft platform, for many years. There's lots that's happened since then. We'll talk about that. The Active Directory, of course, is where customers are first storing their identity. And how do we scale that? So it's built into Office 365. You get an identity in Office 365. You may have other SaaS-based solutions, whether they're sanctioned by the IT organization, or they could be spun up by line of business, shadow IT. More and more of our, particularly manufacturing and endpoints that are out there, the Internet of Things concept has come around as part of our infrastructure. And as you scale that infrastructure across multiple different clouds, we start talking about hybrid. We have a trust center that Microsoft has for explaining all of the compliance capabilities, and then this intelligent security graph, which is all the intelligence that Microsoft is collecting about running their global data centers and all this points of information that are allowing us to understand what's going on in your environment. In Azure, you may have the ability to spin up security appliances in the marketplace. There's the Azure Security Center. All these capabilities inside of Azure, many relate to security. And Windows Server 2019 has a lot of improvements around security and the Azure Stack platform. Windows clients, a lot of things in Windows 10 are focused on security. Concept of privileged access workstations we'll talk about. And then drilling down on identity and access and discussing conditional access, very important topic today. There's the third-party graph integration with all these additional insights that we get from running these services in the Microsoft Cloud. In Office 365, there's a secure score, customer lockbox, and today we'll talk more into detail about Azure information protection. So if you wanted one slide that handles all the Microsoft technologies as they relate to security, this is the slide. And it keeps on building. So why did we show that? Well, basically saying that Microsoft provides a lot of the capabilities in the cloud solutions they offer natively, and that allows you, the benefit is fewer vendors and products to manage, a lot less friction from end users and resisting the security capabilities. If they're bolted on afterwards, they tend to be more intrusive on the user experience. And we're trying to lower your overall integration cost. So if you simplify the security landscape, you can save a lot of money across these different capabilities: identity and access management, threat protection, information protection, and user management. You might recognize some of the solutions you have in market or in your organization. Looking at how Microsoft can consolidate this into their Microsoft 365 offering can save you a significant amount of cost versus those additional products that you may have looked at or integrated. So there's actually in this slide 26 other security vendors that could be replaced by introducing the Microsoft 365 E5 capabilities. There's a whole section on the right that covers what they can do. There's a small section of Microsoft saying that they don't cover. There's partners like with them that can help you conduct the process and do more with vulnerability testing and penetration testing. And there's some additional other security offerings. So that's a big picture look. And I want Max then now to jump into the first pillar of identity and access management. So Max, can I give you control, or do you want to?
You can drive, that's fine. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. All right, so yeah, as Chris was saying, let's start looking at the identity and access management pillar here. So Microsoft's approach to secure identities is to reach zero trust. So what is zero trust? It means basically you never trust a login, an access. You always verify. So right, so we used to think that anything coming from the corporate network would be trusted, whereas everything coming from outside the firewall would be untrusted. So now we've got, devices connecting from anywhere, personal devices, corporate devices. So with that approach, we never trust the logins, we always verify. So how do we get there? One way to get there is the secure authentication. So, Microsoft is transitioning from a username and password to a passwordless approach. So we know over that 82% of the breaches nowadays are still caused by stolen passwords. So that's why they're trying to transition to that password-less approach, which is going to be more secure. It's also going to be more seamless for users, where they don't have to manage that many passwords. So we got a few options here from Microsoft. We got Windows Hello for Business. It allows you to leverage biometrics on a desktop or laptop to get into the system. We can do Microsoft Authenticator, leverage the mobile app with biometrics on the application to also get into the system without a password. And the latest player in the game is the FIDO2 security keys. They are physical security keys you can insert into the laptop, and also provides a factor of authentication to log in. You can also kind of combine all of those together. And just so you know, Authenticator and FIDO2 are still in public preview right now, so you're able to test those out, but they're not GA yet.
Okay.
So yeah, now let's talk about conditional access. As I was saying, everybody's leveraging multiple devices nowadays, working from pretty much anywhere, using multiple apps. So we need to make sure we can understand how to secure the environment. Thinking of that zero trust model. So with Azure AD Conditional Access, we can define, who are our users and locations, trusted versus untrusted, for example. What are our devices, personal versus corporate versus even mobile. We can look at the applications we want to secure, high, medium, and low level of sensitivity, for example. And we also have real-time risk. So this is the Microsoft intelligence running in the background, is assessing all the different logins. And based on the behavior, based on any potential leaked credentials they may be aware of, they're going to be able to flag those accounts as risky sign-ins, for example. And we're going to be able to prevent access, or maybe prompt multi-factor authentication instead. So we've got a lot of different ways to provide zero trust using conditional access here. So in terms of identity protection, so once the user is logged into the system, he's got that session going, we also need to make sure we can monitor the session, right? Because the account could still be compromised. The user is, doing various tasks and activities within the systems, and we want to make sure we can investigate any potential compromised behavior. So we've got the Azure ATP that's provided by Microsoft. So that's going to actually look at your on-premises networks, right? It's going to look at your domain controllers, all the communications happening on premises, and it's going to basically send those attacks back out to Azure. So from Azure, you're going to be able to investigate those on-premises threats. You've got Microsoft Cloud App Security, which is also going to be able to look at shadow IT, see what your users are doing within your on-premises networks. Are they using unsanctioned apps, for example? You're going to be able to block those as well using this tool. And lastly, you've got Azure AD Identity Protection. Again, those are going to be the signals, right? Microsoft is going to deem some accounts to be high risk, and we're going to be able to prevent access as well, or even limit access. Let's say we see a user doing lots of sharing with external users at once. Maybe that's something that we're going to want to trigger a policy upon. So a lot of different ways to approach this from an identity protection point of view here.
Very good. Let's take a look at a demo. I like this one a lot.
Yes, so let's take a look at the passwordless authentication here. So we've got Megan B trying to log into office.com. So she, enters her UPN to log in. As soon as she does that, she gets a notification on her phone through the Authenticator app. She just needs to match the number she's seeing on the browser with one of the numbers showing up on the mobile phone. So we're just going to enter 62 here.
Yep. And verify.
And finally, exactly, she needs to verify the device with biometrics right on the cell phone.
I've actually seen this work when I log in with my phone to my Microsoft account as a consumer.
Yep.
So no password required.
No password required, completely seamless here.
And then she's in.
your final verification through biometrics here. So again, we're enhancing security of the system, and we're also making the system more seamless for end users.
Let's talk about conditional access now. Applying those
Okay.
policies to data.
All right, so here we've got a SharePoint Online website. It's called the Sales and Marketing. That site has been labeled as a confidential site. So we are able to apply a policy based upon that label, which is the confidential label here. So if you want to open up that marketing plan Excel.
Yes,
Chris.
up in the spreadsheet.
Yep. So as you can see at the top here, it says that organization doesn't allow you to download, print, or sync using this device. So in this instance, we've got that user working from home, working using a personal device. That device is not joined to the domain. We've got policies running towards that confidential site that are preventing us from doing all those actions, download, print, or sync. However, we are still able to make changes to this Excel spreadsheet. We're still able to collaborate here. So again, it's very seamless for the end user. We can work from anywhere. This is protected. We cannot download or do any other actions with that document from a remote location. And also the user is aware of what's going on, where there's just that simple banner at the top that tells the user what the user can do. So that's also one way to get to zero trust approach, and also make sure that users can stay productive.
I'm going to add something here, Max. You know, the default settings for OneDrive allows you to sync content on a non-domain joined machine. So for folks that are enabling OneDrive, if you access that OneDrive from your home computer, you can download that material by default. So unless you make proactive efforts to protect information or make those change those default settings in OneDrive, users can take information on your internet off your internet without no challenges there.
Yeah, good point, Chris. Thanks.
Yeah. Threat protection.
All right, so let's talk about threat protection. So this is more the classical way of thinking about security. So Microsoft is providing the advanced threat protection package. So I'm sure some of you know that they've got a couple different plans, Plan 1 and Plan 2. Plan 2 gives you a little more features here. But Microsoft's got an industry-leading protection tool. I mean, they analyze trillions of signals a day, and they're able to basically use that data and the artificial intelligence to prevent phishing attacks, sophisticated attacks. They also provide you with actionable insights, right? So they look at your tenant and they make recommendations based upon what they're seeing as well. So again, that's a list that's ongoing and that keeps getting refreshed based on that latest data that they can gather. We can also provide automated response. So that would be part of the plan too. So what this means is if there's a breach into the system, you can create a playbook that would, for example, remove a machine from the domain automatically, right? So you can create those rules and those playbooks, and every time there is one of those scenarios that kicks in, you're able to just have automated response, shut down the account right away, and get that built into to your security suite. And in terms of training and awareness, they have other tools such as the attack simulator, which is also part of Plan 2, allows you to launch like an attack towards your own system, where you can gather information to see which users clicked, let's say, on the phishing links.
Yeah.
So you can leverage that information, and then you can enhance your training and show exactly what users should be on the lookout for.
So I did this once, and we had an email sent by an internal alias from HR department. And it was sent out saying, here's our new healthcare provider. Click on this link to access this. It was a phishing attack. Well, we didn't tell the HR person. And the HR person said, please don't click on this link. They replied this is a phishing attack. So our internal test, one thing you have to do is make sure if you're sending it from an internal alias, you let the people know in HR that you're running a test. So lessons learned for us. But those are great tools to have, and it's interesting to see the reports on how many people in your organization clicked on those links. It's
Exactly.
embarrassing.
It's good to get that data to ahead of time for sure. You know.
For sure. Yeah. Fake attacks.
Yeah. All right, so now let's take a look at a demo for threat protection. So, we've got a couple demos here from an end user perspective. So we've got a user named Alex logged into Outlook on the web, just getting a message here from Megan. So let's open up that message. So as you can see, I've got the body of the email here. On the right-hand side, it says ATP scan in progress. And what's happening in the background is we've got ATP safe attachments running with dynamic delivery. So what this means is the recipient gets the email with the body. You get a preview of the attachment so you can look at it. The attachment in the meantime is getting scanned. So at the end of the scan, if it is deemed to be safe, you're going to get the copy of the document. If it's not, it's just going to get blocked. So again, very seamless for the end user. You get the email right away, you get that preview, and you get the attachment getting scanned in the background. Another example here is the, can you just go back one more time? Yeah, Chris. So we've got an email here with a hyperlink. If you click on that hyperlink, you're going to see that this is actually a blocked site. So that's a custom list that's been created by the customer to block that specific site. And you've got ATP safe links working here right directly from Outlook. You've got a URL that's been rewritten, resent to safe links, and it's telling us that that's being part of the organization URL policy. So if we keep going here, and we see that the email has actually a document, so we can open up that document as well. And we scroll all the way down. We're gonna see that there is one more, Chris. Yeah. So all the way down, we've got a link pointing to an Excel document, right? So if we open up that Excel document, that sends us to a website that's been classified as malicious. So you can see that with safe links, you get protection within the Office Pro Plus suite as well as Outlook as well. So it's really covering the whole, the full spectrum here.
Very insightful. Hey, so I'll talk about, thanks Max, I'll talk about information protection, which is all about the ways you can protect your data and classify and label your data, which we had in the poll. So we need to locate and classify information where it lives across different devices, and then based upon the applications we use, apply a protection based on policy, which allows us to proactively monitor and remediate. And then if we have to align that by compliance requirements, it's going to get us farther along our compliance capabilities than if we did this in a manual way. So let's take an example of data and how through its life cycle, we can protect that information, monitor and analyze it. So all of our users are creating documents, data across many different collaboration platforms and in locations. When sensitive information gets detected, we can classify and label it. But this is where the technology and your business process have to come together, and you have to ask yourself, do you have sensitive data in your organization? How do you categorize sensitive data? And then can you put together, from a compliance perspective, a labeling process that doesn't intervene too much? Is there a way that you can automate this in a way that's more less intrusive for our users? One of the things that Microsoft has announced recently, because the challenge with this in the past is that forcing users to automatically or self-identify data classification is a blocker for their productivity. They always sometimes roll their eyes, if you will, if you have to force these labels across all the documents that they're working on. Well, thanks to machine learning, Microsoft announced that last fall at Ignite that they will be able to automatically detect sensitive information types and then classify that across your data store. So they'll make suggestions that this data is potentially sensitive information. So the burden for having to classify all that doesn't sit on your end users as much, because Microsoft will, in those environments like SharePoint or OneDrive, be able to automatically detect different sensitive data types. But it's important to understand what those data types are and how to label them across your organization. So as the data travels across various locations or even shared externally, you can monitor that data. And then you have the full lifecycle retention of, this is a project that we worked on for 6 months, but after that project is delivered, perhaps we need to have a retirement process to delete that data if it is sensitive. So talk about retention. Archive as well. So here's our demo. We have a user that's working on a Mac, their corporate-driven Mac device, and of course they're using Microsoft Office. The top right-hand side, you see that we have the sensitivity label. This is Azure Information Protection, and it was actually an acquisition from a company called Secure Islands that delivered this ability to have every document have the tagging system. The default is general, and so as we're working on this marketing campaign, nothing really sensitive in this document at this point, so we're going to classify it as general. So as I scroll through this document, again, nothing too confidential. I can access this same document on a mobile device. So if I'm traveling, need to check back in, and that mobile device, can I still see the sensitive label types? Yes, even on the mobile client, there is the ability to see the sensitivity here at the bottom and see that this is still a general document. Well, let's fast forward. And we notice now that there's a different classification. This is now a confidential document because it pertains a credit card number. And when this credit card number was inserted, we now have a watermark showing that this document is sensitive or confidential financial data. Who did that? Well, that was inserted by Nestor, my colleague, right? As he was processing this order, he decided to drop in our marketing campaign, the supplier card number for our food purchases. Well, that wasn't a great idea, but since we did it and we have the automatic detection, this document is now a confidential document. And because so, we can't do certain things like copy or print this information. This is the same document as a PDF. And what we're showing here is that the sensitive labels can also be extended to a non-Microsoft application like an Adobe PDF file. So even if it's saved as a PDF, we still see that same level of protection. And also enforces the ability not to be able to print this document or save it. All right, that was a demo of information protection. Let's talk about strengthening your security posture with insight. So as we look at this, how are we understanding our current position across your organization? With them, and many other organizations offer security assessments and workshops, and we'll talk about that. We can establish products required to meet compliance and security levels, create policies, enable those controls to define your security posture. Microsoft builds in a lot of these recommendations into the security capabilities, but it does require continuous monitoring to make sure that your policies and compliance requirements are enforced. And if you look at one of the advantages of customers who have moved to the cloud is as you allow the cloud providers to assume more of these functionality and capabilities, it reduces your risk because the shared risk is actually on the vendor that's hosting the information, which is why the largest group inside of Office 365 dev team is security and compliance. There's, like we showed earlier, massive amounts of investments that Microsoft has made to protect and control access across the data that's stored in their data centers. So it's good news because you can accelerate your compliance requirements by using cloud-based offerings. And here's an example. If you are required to comply with NIST 800-171 data classification requirements, Microsoft owns more than 75% of the requirements to get there. So if you look at all the requirements and the controls, and we can show you in Compliance Manager shortly, all those insights and controls, what Microsoft takes care of in the data center to protect and encrypt the data, how they access the data, and how well it's protected in the Microsoft data centers. So what you have to do is make sure that you're setting the policies and operating procedures to leverage your controls over that data. And tools that have emerged, like the Compliance Manager, are excellent ways to again accelerate your adoption of these compliance requirements. They actually have the classifications already established. You can filter on different types of policies. So if you have to align by a certain government requirement, you'll see that insight and steps and actions you need to take in order to be compliant with those regulations and controls. So I encourage you to take a look at Compliance Manager in your own Office 365 environment if you haven't already, to see how they can help you simplify compliance. So with them, we have teams of people that have been doing audits and SOC compliance. And Max and I have been doing a number of security workshops to help customers achieve their regulatory requirements using Microsoft Cloud capabilities. And what has been helpful is that Microsoft is encouraging partners like us to go out and have these conversations with customers. They're actually funding us. So Max and I have been getting on airplanes to talk to customers in different parts of the US, all funded by Microsoft, to come in and have a more detailed conversation around these technologies that we discussed today. So that's good news if you can qualify for a funding workshop. The two different levels of the workshops, by the way, are just going deeper into demonstration. We also run a detailed discovery of your compliance requirements that are unique to your organization. And as a result of that discovery, you can generate a good plan that allows you to have a step-by-step prioritization of these efforts to maintain security and improve your overall compliance. If you want us to run what's called a threat check by using some of these tools like Azure Information Protection and Cloud App Security, we can do a trial of those tools in your environment, or if you already have those, we can help you run through those tools and slice through all the data that's available. So looking at the time, we do have just to give you a little more insight. Can you see the demo environment here?
It's showing up, Chris. Yep.
Good. So these are just some of the tools that we've discussed. I just want to give you a quick tour of the Security Center. And these are some of the environments that we have access to. Here's the secure score we talked about. So from a management perspective, in Office 365, you can take a look at historical scores of how identity and data is being protected. And then here's the great thing. Microsoft will give you recommendations to increase your score. And this is part of our action plan. MFA is always shows up. This is the best thing. We talked about passwords earlier. So requiring multi-factor authentication is a great way to protect those passwords. That's a secure score. We also have the compliance score. So this is the new compliance center. And this where we have data classification again. We can filter on different classification. Capabilities. So if you're doing SharePoint Online, or just as an example, you can drill down into those capabilities. We also, not in this demo, but other environments that we've seen, you actually get the ability to filter on the different compliance and regulations. So you can have an 800 ISO 171, which would be the steps that Microsoft would recommend if you're having to go after that compliance requirement. We have recommended actions and more details of solutions and assessments that you can conduct. I know Max is a big fan of cloud app security. This is the dashboard that takes in all the applications that are running in your organization and mapping it against industry classifications. So there are some scores that are out there of applications that your organization may be using. And if you need to investigate if this is something that you would allow inside of your organization, you can take a look at drilling down onto these applications.
Yeah, Chris, I'd just add that's always very insightful. I mean, every time we run this, customers, definitely find out new things about, what's happening inside the network. So the way this works, you just need to, get a copy of your firewall logs. We just upload them into Cloud App Security, then Cloud App Security runs the intelligence against those logs, and then we can just sort through those reports. But it's always very interesting to run this and see exactly what's happening behind the scenes.
Right, and there are some things that the risky behaviors, the logins from different locations, those are things that they're building into Azure Active Directory. So you might notice those in the Azure portal. But what I like about this as well is, Max, is that to your point, allows us to take a look at all the activity that's happening across your network and scanning those logs and making recommendations. We also had a conversation this week, Max, where you can use conditional access policy and enforce through Cloud App Security application usage. You can actually block certain applications that don't meet your requirements as an organization. Okay, let's go back to slides. Well, we did save some time for questions. Sasha, were there questions in the IM window?
We actually don't have any at the moment. You guys flew through that. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to send them in.
Got some polls that were open too.
Yes, we do. Actually, I wanted to do the 3 polls we have in this time. We could get some participation, would appreciate it. So we just wanted to ask 3 consecutive questions. Do you currently have a strategy for protecting and managing sensitive information? Let's see. So far, everybody does, which is great. Just give it a minute to vote. Okay, thank you. Still coming in. So some are not sure, the majority do, which is good news. Let's see. Number 2 is, do you have control of your data as it travels both inside and outside of your organization? All right, so we are split. Majority do, some are not sure. Still going on, so most do, which is good. Let's see, and lastly, are you using solutions to classify, label, and protect sensitive data today? It's about a 50-50. Some do, some don't, and then a couple are unsure. All right. Thank you, everyone, for participating in the poll. Chris or Max, do you guys have any closing statements? Otherwise, we have given some people 15 minutes back.
Our next steps here is that, like I mentioned, Max and I and our team and others on our team have been offering these workshops to go into more detail of your particular environment. So there's a link allowing us to sign up if you're interested. or follow up with us or your account exec from Witham to see what we can help, how we can help along this way in this conversation. This is a very important topic. We're seeing a lot more interest. As I mentioned throughout today's presentation, that there's a significant investment from Microsoft to make sure that you're feeling protected and trusted by Microsoft. I've actually been reading this book called Tools and Weapons, The Promise and Peril of the Digital Age from Brad Smith. Brad Smith is the chief policy and legal expert at Microsoft, and it's been at Microsoft for a long time. I've met him a few times and seen him speak at some conferences, but he goes into more detail in this book about the conversations he had with the Obama administration during the time where the NSA had some challenges. As you know, they had the WikiLeaks, but before that, we discovered in this book how NSA was tapping into the lines that were going across the Atlantic Ocean and seeing the information from different cloud providers. We thought, and Microsoft thought, that that was a violation of privacy. And it's a good story to see how Microsoft responded. It was actually Steve Ballmer that said, we're going to stop developing new capabilities in the cloud to take a look at encryption. And they decided as a result of this, its experience, that they should encrypt all their data on the public network. A lot has changed since then. The Microsoft data centers now have their own connections between their data centers that are not going across the public internet, but the information that does travel across the internet now is encrypted. So the government cannot spy on you. So, and there's more stories in here about how other world organizations and just on the global perspective, really fascinating to see how other countries are addressing privacy. You know, there are situations where the Microsoft will proactively cooperate in an investigation. For example, a terrorist attack. They've had several situations that we found out that a terrorist is using a Microsoft email situation and solution, and they've had a chance to work with Microsoft to locate and stop those organizations from conducting more challenges that they pose and threats. So again, a good book to read if this is a topic that you are passionate about, like we are here with them. So with that, that's the end of the show. Max, thanks for joining. Sasha, thanks for hosting.
Thank you both. Everyone have a great day.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.